Hello, I'm Claire Smith and welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to talk about Shay and Blue fragrances. I have bought 9 Shay and Blue fragrances and I'm just going to talk you through each one of these, and I'm also going to rank each of the fragrances at the end of the video. I will also just talk a little bit about the Shay and Blue brand because I feel like that was a massive part of why I chose to try these fragrances and why I chose to buy them. So if you like this kind of content, then please do consider subscribing if you haven't done already, and also please like this video if you do end up liking this video, if you find it useful in any way. So Shay and Blue as a brand started back in 2013, and they are a brand that was started by a British guy. So this guy worked at Jo Malone and also at Chanel as a manager, so he was in the fragrance industry anyway, and his idea was to create a vegan, cruelty-free, clean brand that didn't gender their fragrances, and so this is where Shay and Blue came from. So Shay and Blue are also environmentally conscious. They use recycled packaging, and all of their fragrances have been created by one perfumer. So the perfumer in question is Julie Massey, and you may know her as the person who created the C by Giorgio Armani line of fragrances. So Shay and Blue fragrances come in 10ml, 30ml and 100ml bottles. And actually one 10ml fragrance like this one will cost you around £20 to £25 depending upon which fragrance you choose. But actually around the holidays you can buy these gift sets. I think this one's got three fragrances in and was about £15 and around the holidays. And this one has 5 in and was about £20 around the holidays. So actually I got these 2 gift sets of 8 fragrances, total for around £30 including postage. So I don't think that's really that bad to try 8 fragrances. It's very affordable to try Shay and Blue. So what was my experience like in ordering from Shay and Blue? Well, I think it was fine. They turned up on time. The only thing I would say would be that the fragrance brand says that they're not gendering their fragrances, but on my order it said men's gift set for one of these gift sets. So it seems like the fragrance brand are saying one thing and actually their ordering system says another. So I found that interesting actually, and a little bit jarring really with how they sort of purport to be on the website. Also, I would say as a scientist, to me, clean doesn't really mean anything. It's a meaningless word. You don't need to adhere to any kind of standard to call yourself a clean fragrance brand. So I did do a bit of digging on their website and I did see their banned ingredients list, and I do agree that some of those are still used in the fragrance industry. So I do agree that they're making some efforts to be a cleaner brand, but I'm just not sure about the standard at which they are setting that sort of cut off as calling themselves a cleaner brand. I guess if that's important to you, you can also go on their website and you can see what they do or don't use in their fragrances. So the presentation of the fragrances is quite good. It comes in these like blue boxes and they have ribbons round, and you just take the lid off like this, and then they're sat there in this nice presentation. It kind of reminds me of the boat race actually, this kind of box with this blue packaging. It sort of looks a bit Cambridge Oxford, doesn't it? But yeah, the little bottles are quite cute as well, little 10ml bottles, very nice. The only thing I'd say is that the caps don't really fit sometimes they're a bit squished, but ultimately it's fine. So what do these smell like? So I'm going to start off with the fragrance that I first bought from Shay and Blue, and that one was White Peaches. So if you know me, you will know that I don't particularly love peach in fragrances, especially if it's with powdery vanillas, ambers or patchouli. This fragrance is definitely not that. It's a very refreshing, very sparkling peach almost. Not necessarily fizzy, but sparkling. It's got a coolness to it. It's almost like a peach schnapps, this fragrance. To me, this also has a little bit of a greenness and almost something that smells a little bit like a very gentle blackberry to it. It's definitely got an underlying other sort of berry fruitiness about it. And actually, I just find this one really refreshing on a spring summer day. It doesn't last that long, it maybe lasts 3 or 4 hours, but I really don't mind respraying it because it's just so refreshing to smell. So that's White Peaches. So this next fragrance is called Blood Oranges, and blood oranges really does smell like blood oranges. So blood orange to me is much a less bright, duller, almost drier kind of citrus smell. It's something that just isn't quite as sweet as a normal orange. And this one actually, when you first spray it, smells almost like the peel of an orange or the pith of an orange, almost like you're peeling an orange. And I really like the opening of this fragrance. I think that's really distinctive and different from other orange fragrances that I've smelt that really concentrate on that really bright and zingy note. I think this one, as it dries, it gets a little bit leathery, and the leather is more like a very gentle leather. It's not really a harsh black leather. It's something that's quite almost suede-like. This, as it dries further, becomes more woody and more musky, and actually the dry down of this fragrance is more like a woody kind of orangey peel almost. I think this fragrance is probably not going to be for everyone. If you like something really sweet, or if you're looking for something that is really uplifting, this is probably not the fragrance for you. But I think if you want an orange fragrance that doesn't make you smell like orange juice, this is a good one. So this fragrance lasted 4 hours on me, and even though this fragrance isn't really my scent profile, I did quite enjoy this fragrance. I thought it was quite distinctive, and I hadn't really smelled anything like this. So that's Blood Oranges. So the next fragrance is probably the one that attracted me most to the gift set, and it's called Atropa Belladonna. So I really wanted to try this fragrance because of the note profile. It just attracted me. And actually in the first 10 minutes of this fragrance, it's very spring-like, very floral. So you get those kind of green spring bulb kind of smells like narcissus. And there's also a bit of a petaliness to this fragrance, and you definitely get a little touch of the jasmine too. This fragrance really has a bit of a solar feel in the opening. It's very bright, and it's almost like a sun cream or a body cream. After about 10 minutes, this fragrance begins to morph, so it turns more for me into a shampoo or even something soapy. The florals really fade back, and actually it becomes a little bit fruitier. There's like a very rich blackcurrant in the background. It's not very bright, it's not a sparkling blackcurrant, it's quite a dull blackcurrant, but it's there. And it actually reminds me of a very toned down version of something like Sea by Giorgio Armani. So the dry down of this fragrance is really that soapy, creamy floral and maybe a touch of woodiness about it, but ultimately mainly the creamy floral. This fragrance was very quiet, didn't really project, but it was definitely present on my skin for quite a long time. I quite like this one, but I do think there's a little bit of ambroxan going on in this fragrance, which does put me off slightly, and I do like the opening so much more than the dry down. I think that those first 10 minutes of this fragrance are absolutely perfect, and I really wish it stayed like that throughout the fragrance's life, but alas, that's not so. So that's Atropa Belladonna. So the next fragrance is called English Cherry Blossom, and this one I was really excited to try because I thought I would really love this fragrance. So this opens to me with a bergamot and lemon citrus, and there's also some appley cherry blossom. So to me, the cherry blossom smells more like an apple blossom. And if you know me, you will know that I have problems with apple blossom. So apple blossom makes me think of air fresheners in toilets, and that's really what I get from this fragrance. The dry down is more like a laundry detergent. It's a very super kind of clean fragrance that I've smelt before. It's something that I don't need more of. It's something that makes me think almost of a Moschino fragrance. It's something like that. But yeah, this one just to me has a bit of ambroxan as well going on, and it's something that's not entirely pleasant for me. So I think this one I could take or leave. It really wasn't my favourite, this one. I think actually this lasted quite well on my skin, but it didn't really project that much. It's not really a strong fragrance, as with most of these Shay and Blue fragrances, and it's definitely not one that I would buy. So that's English Cherry Blossom. So this next fragrance is called Framboise Noire, and this one just sounded really up my street. I would, black raspberry, it sounds like something I'm going to love. So this one opens really, really sugary. It smells almost like a brown sugar, and then there's also sort of a blackberry and raspberry feel to this fragrance. There's also something that smells a little bit like licorice, almost like a red licorice. You had those really super fruity licorice, natural licorice, that kind of smell to it. I really like the opening of this fragrance, and actually in the dry down, the licorice starts to fade back a little bit, and you're just left with that sugary fruitiness. As this fragrance dries down, it gets a little bit darker and a little bit muskier, and there's also a bit of a synthetic oud in this fragrance. I think the dry down of this fragrance really makes me think of the dry down of Lolita Lempicka, that sort of dark muskiness that you get there. But I think the thing about this fragrance is that I just wish it was fruitier. I wish the fruits were more realistic and more juicy, and they're just not. They're just a little bit sort of synthetic smelling. It's just not quite there for me. Having said that, I didn't dislike this one. I quite enjoyed this fragrance, and it was quite strong. It projected quite well. I mean, not that any of these fragrances are particularly strong, but this was definitely one of the stronger ones from this range. And actually it lasted quite well on my skin as well. I got over 4 hours out of this one. So that's Framboise Noire. So the next fragrance is Black Tulip. So if you've watched my channel, you will know that I'm not a huge fan of this fragrance, but I think for a lot of people, this one is one of their favourites from the range, maybe also along with Salt Caramel. So this one to me opens with a plum note, and that plum note is verging on boozy. It's not quite boozy, but it's almost there. It's definitely got a little bit of a fermented feel. And really it's overtaken by some nondescript florals that smell to me almost like nail polish remover. It's got that sort of acetone edge to it. And then there's also something powdery and overly sweet and synthetic, something that I think is what the white chocolate note is in this fragrance. As this dries down, it turns into something that smells like a childhood medicine to me, something like a Calpol or something like that. It doesn't smell exactly like Calpol, but you know what I mean, that sort of super synthetic, sugary sweetness. I think this one just isn't for me, but I think, you know, it's worth trying because I think it's a love or hate fragrance. I think some people really, really get on with this one. It definitely has a warmth to it, and I think it's something that would really work very well in the winter if it's your kind of fragrance. This lasts ages on my skin, perhaps because I don't really like it, but it's also really strong. Compared with the other Shay and Blue fragrances, this one really projects and lasts. So that's Black Tulip. Okay, so now it's time to move on to the scariest one. So yeah, this one was a roller coaster. So this one is called Kingswood, and yeah, I have to say this one when I first smelt this, I kept sniffing because I could smell something that smelled like urine, and I thought, no, it can't be this fragrance, but it was. So this opens to me with something that smells, well, like urine, but I think it's something like a grapefruit. I think listed is pineapple, but to me it smells more like a grapefruit in the opening, but it's definitely got a greenness to it as well, and a soapiness almost. So yeah, it's pineapple listed, but smells more like grapefruit to begin with. It then morphs into more of a pineapple, but it's not a bright, citrusy, sparkly pineapple, juicy and sweet. It's definitely more of a dull pineapple, something that's kind of more woody. The dry down of this fragrance is just warm and woody, and actually it made me think just really strongly of public urinals that had been cleaned with some kind of citrus cleaner, but not very well. And I must say this one I didn't try many times because I just didn't want it on my skin. I just found it so off-putting. And actually if a man was wearing this, I just would not want to be anywhere near him. I would not want to snuggle up to anybody wearing this fragrance. So Kingswood is really my warning from the Shay and Blue range. Just don't even bother with this one from what I would say. But I don't know, maybe some people love this fragrance, I don't know. This just really wasn't a fragrance that I loved, and actually it lasted quite a long time on my skin, unfortunately, so that's Kingswood. So this next fragrance is called Oud Alif, and this is a leathery but synthetic oud. It's not a bad synthetic oud at all. It's definitely one of the better synthetic ouds that I've smelt. I think this is more of a woody oud rather than any other type of oud. It's not medicinal, it's not stinky. It's quite a gentle oud. It's something you can definitely wear in the summer. I think it's, you know, an all year round kind of fragrance. It's quite gentle. It's not really something you would predict from the note profile. You'd think it'd be a bit scary. This is not scary in the slightest. I think anybody, even people who aren't that keen on oud, could probably get away with this one. I think this fragrance has a little bit of a tobacco-y feel to me. It's sort of got that honeyed sweetness that you get with tobacco. And I think that's what I really like about this fragrance. There is chocolate listed in this fragrance, which did excite me to begin with, but I don't really smell anything that I would say would be chocolate. It's something that I do think, you know, I could imagine there being cocoa or something like that. Something a little bit dusty and warm maybe in this fragrance, but really I don't really detect anything that I would describe as chocolate in this fragrance. I just really like this one. I think this is a nice fragrance. And it's something that I could wake up and still smell on my skin. It's something that really lasted on my skin, even though it wasn't a loud fragrance. So that's Oud Alif. So this next fragrance is called Black's Club Leather. And again, I quite like this one. So this one starts out with a brown sugariness to me. And it's something that has a note of brandy. And to me, the brandy is super fruity. It's not really, you know, a deep alcoholic kind of brandy. It's more of the fruitiness of the brandy, the fermented fruits. The leather in this fragrance is black and thick to begin with. It almost smells like a Pontefract cake or something like that. But actually it fades back quite quickly and it becomes more gentle. The booze fades quite quickly and you're left with that sugary fruitiness with that touch of leather in the dry down. but actually the dry down does last on my skin again all night. It's something that I can wake up and still smell. And I really do like the dry down of this fragrance. Again, this one is quite gentle on me. It's not something that I think is beast mode. And I do actually quite like this one. So that's Black's Club Leather. So how would I rank these fragrances and what did I think of them overall? Well, I'd say if you're going to try these fragrances, then go and try them in a store, because buying them, I wasn't impressed. I felt like I was a bit disappointed with their quality. I didn't think they were as good as I thought they might be. And I would also say that don't be as scared of the ouds and the leathers in this fragrance range. I think those are perhaps the better fragrances. I also think that they do have quite a bit of ambroxan in some of these fragrances, which does sort of take the edge, the shine off these fragrances for me a little bit. And a lot of these fragrances also don't project that much. Some of them do last a long time on skin, but they are very much skin scents in the main. So if I'm going to rank these worst to best, then definitely the worst, without any kind of shadow of a doubt, the one that I really couldn't stand was Kingswood. It just made me think of urinals. So yeah, no way would I ever buy Kingswood or want to smell that on anybody. The next worst one I think would be English Cherry Blossom for me. It just, yeah, again, it smelled like air freshener and laundry detergent. It just wasn't for me. The next worst one would probably be Black Tulip. That one is just too sweet for me, and I find it a little bit cloying, but I know that some people absolutely love that fragrance. So definitely one to check out to see whether you're in the love or the hate camp. The next one would probably be Blood Oranges. I think Blood Oranges for me is just not my type of fragrance, but I think if you like that kind of dulled citrus, that bitter citrus, then that might be a good fragrance for you. My next choice would be Framboise Noire. So that one, the problem I had with that was that the berries just weren't that realistic, but I did like aspects of that. I really like the opening with that kind of licoricey feel that you get in the opening. Yeah, it had good and bad aspects and it lasted quite well, so that's why that one's in that position. My next choice would be Atropa Belladonna. So that one is kind of like a sun creamy bulb flower kind of fragrance in the opening. I really love the opening, but the dry down was a little bit disappointing to me. It went a bit shampooey, and yeah, it just wasn't as great in the dry down as the opening. So that's Atropa Belladonna. My next choice would be Black's Club Leather. That one I really did like. But again, it had that sugary weirdness at the beginning and that brandy. And even though I do like kind of alcoholic notes in fragrance, that one just didn't come off quite right for me. So I think that would be my third place. My second choice would be the fragrance that I first bought from this brand, which is White Peaches. I think White Peaches is just a really refreshing, kind of spring summery, happy fragrance. And even though it doesn't last that long or project that much, I just really like it. So that's in my second place. And my first place fragrance would probably be Oud Alif. So I think the thing I like about Oud Alif is just that it's got that sort of tobacco-y edge to it and that leather. And even though it's a synthetic oud, it's really quite pleasant and it lasts a long time on my skin and it's not a beast. So that's my number one, Oud Alif. So please let me know, have you tried any Shay and Blue fragrances and what did you think of them? How would you rank these fragrances? Also, if you haven't done already, then please do consider subscribing and please like this video if you found it useful or if you enjoyed it. So thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.